on 3FM 92.7. Thank you so much for returning to us, and thank you so much for choosing us this morning. We're going to be getting into our big conversation for the morning. And it's one that we touched on very briefly this morning during the news review segment. Now, the Police Council, as you might have been aware or might be aware, had recommended IGP Christian Tete Yohunu's re-engagement. Well, that has received a stamp of approval. But of course, the conversation certainly does not end there. It would appear that government has some tough questions to answer this morning. So we're certainly sinking our teeth into this matter. But let me say good morning and a very warm welcome to my guest in studio. Mr. Gabson Kofi Raphael is General Secretary, National Council of Parent-Teacher Association. Gabson, hello, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Helen. How are you too?
I'm doing all right. I hope you've had breakfast this morning, or not yet.
Great to be on your show.
I take it as a not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, but in due course.
Because of the way you put a ration us here. So.
Oh, that's the reason why. Yes. Typically, what would you have started the morning with?
I eat heavy food.
Oh, wow. And that carries you through the day?
Most part of the day, because I'm a bit workaholic. So
I see. So you get it.
Sometimes I forget
to
my
eat.
Eating habits. So when I get a heavy food, I move with it. Anything that comes is a bonus.
I like that strategy. Well, with a heavy breakfast comes heavy opinions. But today we are running on an empty tank. So let's see what we can do with that energy. Before we get into the conversation proper, let's talk a little bit about IGP Christian Tete Yohunu. For the uninitiated, he was appointed Inspector General of Police on March 13th, 2025. So what is that? Some 6 months ago, something along those lines. Sworn into office by President John Dramani Mahama on March 14th, 2025, and he currently stands as the 31st Inspector General of Police. Christian Tete Yohunu is the 25th Ghanaian to lead the Ghana Police Service since independence. So that number, as quoted before, covers those who had the mantle pre-independence. He took over from Dr. George Ekufu Dampare. Now, let's talk about this recommendation coming from the Peace Council and his re-engagement as Inspector General of Police. And this is the President's response to said recommendation. It reads as follows. I write to inform you that following the recommendation of the Peace Council and in accordance with the relevant provisions governing the administration of the Ghana Police Service, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic, has approved your re-engagement for an additional 2 years upon the attainment of the statutory retirement age in December 2025. Your re-engagement takes effect from the 28th of December 2025. During this period, you shall continue to serve as the Inspector General of Police and discharge the duties and responsibilities attached to the office. The President's decision reflects the Council's firm conviction that your continued leadership is essential to sustaining ongoing reforms, strengthening operational effectiveness, and ensuring stability with the Ghana Police Service at this critical period. You are kindly requested to indicate your acceptance of this re-engagement in writing within 3 days upon receipt of this letter. Please accept, Mr. Inspector General, the assurances of the highest consideration of His Excellency, the President. All right, so that was the response of the President to that recommendation by the Council. We're examining this conversation in the broader context of retirement ages service contract extensions, what our own president had intimated before he assumed office as president. If you are an ardent listener of 3FM 92.7, you might have heard our resident biter, Johnny, talk about let the retirees go, let the young grow, and how sometimes we see a stifling in some of these institutions because that progress is just not seen. You have individuals who take up certain positions and don't seem to, move an inch for others to also take up the mantle. Gabson, what are your initial thoughts on this and how keenly have you followed this conversation so far?
First of all, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to be part of your show this morning. On behalf of parents of Ghana, we wish to commend you for the good work you've been doing for God and country, and also making sure that you put state institutions and anybody who is part of leadership on their toes, so that at least for the sake of the country, Ghana, we can get the best out of the lot that we have in our system. On this note, let me say also that on this particular issue, when I just came here and I saw it on your show, what came to mind first was to look whether there were constitutional impediments or constitutional imperatives that grants the president the right, that unfettered right, to take that decision. And for that matter, when you read chapter 15 of the Constitution, page 133, the police service, it speaks to Article 200, speaks about there shall be a police service of Ghana, and no person or authority shall raise any police service except by or under the authority of an act of parliament. And when it goes further, it talks about the 201 talks about the establishment of the police council, which shall consist of the vice president, who shall be the chairman, the minister responsible for internal affairs as Interior, the inspector general of police, the attorney general or representative, a lawyer, and all the, it talks about the composition. And it also talks about the role of who appoints the inspector general. The 202 says that the inspector general shall be appointed by the president, acting in consultation with the Council of State. So it clearly shows a roadmap, how it's done. If you read the communique and you read the issues that have come, you cannot see any place that you can speak to any constitutional breach. And the same constitution also accepts the fact that government has the right, if you see that you have some unique talent and exceptional service that you've rendered to the country, and we still think that you still have the energy, you still have the vibe, you still have the integrity, you still have the knowledge, and you still have the capacity to still run the show, as government's, it's a privilege and it's a right for government to decide to retain you or not. I also agree with those who says that if somebody has been in public service for a while and has stayed in a particular office for some particular period of time and he has retired, they should allow him to go honorably. But in the case of this Yohunu, it's an isolated case. If you look at the circumstance and as his tenure and appointment, if people were saying that if he's not getting more than a year, in the first place, the president should have been appointed. They should get somebody who can stay there in terms of longevity. But in the wisdom of the president and looking at the police architecture and looking at the way he worked closely with Dampare and the way they were able to transition us from one democratic government into another, and they were able to manage the conduct of the elections. And after that, how he has been able to bring morale and boost the morale of the police administration, has been able to make sure that at least there's some level of civility and the security of the state architecture of the country has been improved tremendously. I am based in Atebubu, and on that stretch, from anything from Ejura to Yeji, Atebubu to Kwame Danso to Kajeji to Kojokrom, that enclave, the truth of the matter is that armed robbery has been on the ascendancy for a long time. But since he took over and there were appeals, we've seen that that issue has come down. We are not saying that we are totally out of the woods, but the rate at which you could hear our stories in the media landscape, you can go and search.
Right. And
you can see the last time you heard about major armed robbery incidents on this. It's just last week or so that we heard that another one happened. But for some time now, he has been able to improve upon the security situation.
You attribute that to the leadership of IGP Yohunu?
Yes, it's leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Right.
You can't take it away. You sit in the show. If anything goes well, they'll give the credit to you. Whether your producer did well or not, they don't see the producer. It is you they see.
That's right.
You are the one holding the fort. You are the one showing the face of Treffen. And for that matter, every rise and falls on you. So we are on Sunrise Show. If the sun rises very well for every Ghanaian today, this morning, they'll give credit to you. If it doesn't rise well, they'll give the backlash to you. But management will take the chunk of the blame. And that is the president. He's a commander-in-chief. So if he has that power to take that decision, and he didn't sidestep any legal process, he didn't sidestep any due process of law, he went through the due process of law, and he has done that. I just think that we just need to first of all commend His Excellency the President, and also commend the IGP for at least proving to us that he has what it takes to do that work. And as we congratulate him, we should know that we still demand more from him. The 2 years ahead of him, we want to see that he will prove to us that the best is yet to come out of the police administration. This is what we expect, nothing more, nothing less.
Right.
So that at least people who have issues about his appointment, at the end of the day, after reflection, can I just say, oh, they are justified, or they will say that, oh, this one there, we got it wrong, or probably the decision that was taken was one of the best decisions. So I don't see anything so much of a problem. I also understand when people raise the issues about let the retirees go, where we saw the executive secretary to the president, Dr. Kalistus Mahama, PhD, wrote a letter earlier on saying that they were not going to grant any contract extension. You know, when governments...
Right. In fact, I want to pull up that communique.
Yeah, pull it
If
up.
we can pull it up. It's dated the 2nd of April, 2025, because that is a big reason why we even have this conversation in focus. So very quickly, Gabson, let me read that one.
Yeah.
Again, it's coming from the Office of the President, dated the 2nd of April, 2025, with the heading, Suspension of the Grant of Contract Appointments. Now, the grant of post-retirement contract appointments to retired public service staff has been suspended with immediate effects. Consequently, all requests for such appointments will no longer be considered, and also kindly take note this directive and ensure strict compliance. Gabson.
So I understand the circumstances of the times. The executive secretary is the secretary to the president. He acts based on directive from the president. So if the government has come in new and there are requests on the table and people are pushing papers to make sure that they can be granted contract extension, the president said that in his wisdom, as at that time, he is not settled to be sure of what decision he was taking, and he puts up this communique. It was just to tell everybody that, look, that particular issue for now is on hold. There is no any decision in that direction. But human beings as we are, time changes. As times move on and you feel that this one, you didn't get it wrong, you at that time it was right, but now you think that you have to amend your position. I don't see anything wrong with it. So I think that the whole controversy has to do with this letter.
That's right.
And then also the subsequent letter that has come. People are thinking that, oh, it's going to open the Pandora's box for more contract extensions and all this.
Is that not a possibility?
If it's justified and it's in accordance with law and it doesn't violate any provisions of the Constitution, who am I to say I have issues with it? Because if you have issues with it and violates any provision of the Constitution, the best forum is to go to the courts and make sure that the rule of law, not the rule of might, prevails. So we just have to look at it from that perspective and deal with it accordingly. But I'm saying that, for instance, I'm foreseeing, and it's a possibility, that we've just appointed a new Chief Justice, and looking at also his tenure, he's not more than a year or two, he might be going. If he performs well, and he's supposed to be granted contract, and looking at the way the Justice Paul Bafo Boni, right?
Yes.
If you're looking at the way he has stayed long on the bench and the kind of things that have happened, sometimes we inflict our own issues on ourselves. Because if somebody is overqualified for something and somebody bypass the process and you put junior people to overhead this, these are some of the things that happens. When people also come and they think that, look, let's also give that person the opportunity to share his knowledge.
This is the consequence of that.
So these are the consequences of some of these, our actions and inactions.
Right.
But as far as they don't violate any law, and we are rather discussing emotions, but no, we are not discussing a position based on law, I would have a different view that, look, the president has not erred. We wish the IGP well, and we pray and hope that he works within expectations and is able to get the needed resources to be able to make sure that we can go home and sleep. When we are walking on the roadside, even 12 a.m., 1 a.m., nobody is able to snatch our phones from us. We walk in Ghana as if daytime, the way we work in the night, we work the same time, daytime, and we feel very safe and secure in our working environments, in our homes, and everywhere part of of the country we find ourselves in.
Cecily Gapson, thank you so much for those thoughts. Let me introduce into the conversation Dr. Victor Doke. He's a security lecturer and also an analyst, no stranger to our 3FM Sunrise platform. Doc, hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing this morning?
I'm okay.
All right. Great to hear your voice. This morning, we're talking about the Police Council's recommendation for IGP Christian Tete Yohunu to be re-engaged and the President's stamp of approval on that. And my first question to you is, what are the security implications, both positive and negative, for extending IGP Yohunu's tenure for 2 years, if any, that is?
Thank you very much. I think the implications, positive-wise, continuity is key. The period in which we are in will not be advisable for a change. Yeah, the festive season. There's a lot ongoing right now with regard to peaceful task force business in the northern region, cracking down on illegal activities. And then also we look at how fast he was able to pick up the report which he was tasked to. And he brought out the report and the recommendations for the president to act on. So I think these initial positives are what the council noted, for which he was recommended to continue with his tenure. But as for the negatives, I have many negatives apart from the North elections where there were challenges in regard to security, irrespective of the numbers that were deployed. But lessons were learned. The most important thing is learning lessons and then quickly adapting and then implementing it than for you to repeat the same mistakes. So I think lessons were learned, and subsequently we saw the African by-election, how it was organized. By and large, going forward, I think we have a big task ahead of him to keep up with the momentum or even go higher, but anything less than that will mean that his credibility will become questionable.
And that's an interesting perspective, certainly, that you bring into the conversation, especially as you mentioned going into the festive season and what that continuity will mean for our security. Now, in your assessment, I mean, this is your field. Has the IGP's leadership led to measurable improvements in police operations? From where you stand, are you able to assess that, and what is your assessment?
Well, from where I sit, in police operations, it's a very big, aspect. You're thinking about operations, not just the personnel, not just the equipment, so operational equipment, training, capacity building. These are ongoing processes. You won't have everything at the goal. So there are challenges. In every institution, yes, there are challenges. The welfare of the personnel are also, also things that you can look at. So all these things poses, a challenge. And as time goes on, we tackle it one by one. Let's look at the aspect of where we, recommended through promotions those personnel who were very proactive in arresting some suspects. So 3 months back. So these are some of the, sanctions, positive sanctions we have implemented, which is giving morale generally in the service. And when we talk to one of the two personnel founders, we get to know that says that they like his leadership and would like him to continue because he's someone who carries everybody along with regard to the police management body. You won't see him in isolation. Wherever he goes, carry the police management body along, and that is very key. Collaboration and coordination with all these commissioners there. Okay, it's very essential that for you to succeed in the next 2 years, you need to also carry them along. But holistically, operations are ongoing processes. You won't have everything. I'm sure when you get to key members in the tell you, yes, there are challenges. And this is what, as institutions, we always grapple with. But as much as operations are concerned, there is always room for improvement. Looking at this period, we need more visibility. It means what? Operational capacity, motorbikes for them, vehicles for them, training, weapons for them, all of these things.
Now, there's a phrase that Johnny coined. He said, let the retirees go, let the young grow. How does contract extensions for security sector leaders affect morale and professional progression, especially within police ranks?
In the context of this discussion, it doesn't really affect when you have a society who is doing well and have ticked all the boxes according to not just analysts or experts, also to institutions. Let's not forget, this is a political appointment. In as much as you would want or someone would want to even go for another person to come, the onus lies on the political hierarchy. And this is what has been found. If they see that this is good for him, everybody is coming along. And rest assured, the council will not take a decision without consulting all commissioners or those who are in line to become the next IGP. These conversations must have been had for them to now settle on the fact that we need to continue. For me, it doesn't affect morale in any way because if he's implementing the policy, he's implementing policies that will affect positively the welfare of the people, then trust me, you won't have any problem with regards to morale or defense in that regard. They will support him to succeed.
Now, let's move away even from the shores of Ghana and maybe get a sense of what it looks like out there. How does international best practice treat contract extensions for public security chiefs who are nearing retirement? Is it a no-no in other jurisdictions, or is this something that is commonplace across the globe?
It is a norm. Contract extension is a norm. Because you're talking about the political aspect and security aspect. Now, in some jurisdictions, you have it that even before 6 months before your tenure ends, you will be asked to go on the sabbatical. But in this case, you have someone who's performing with a problem that becomes the aspect of you seeing that everything goes well. I'm sorry for now. The best practice is that you have someone performing, you can ask the person to continue in as much as you want to. But I don't see anything.
Thank you for that, Doc. And the line hasn't been too clear, but we can still get a sense of what it is that you've said so far. So just two quick questions, and then we can park it here so that we can carry on in the conversation. Now, what safeguards then do you think should be put in place to prevent possible nepotism or favoritism when extending contracts at the top of security organizations? I'm not saying that is what is going on in this instance, but there is this idea that, well, the floodgates might open and that soon we could potentially be in a regime where it's not down to merit or performance, but we're seeing some type of favoritism. What safeguards do you think should be put in place?
Right. A simple answer to this. Also, state institutions are able to come out with their own mechanisms and policies of succession. This is what we are going to be dealing with. And that also means that we have to look at the law. Because if the state institutions don't have a mechanism of policy with regards to succession, then you will have the winner takes all syndrome playing out with every sphere of the sector, not only the state. Okay, so this is the whole strategy or policy or whatever I would suggest. Also, we are able to do that. Then it means we won't be able to have independent institutions who are able to look at their own successions without any political play or interest.
All right, I think we've ultimately lost Doc on the... Okay, Doc, you're back. I'll let you wrap up so I can let you go. We can't hear you too clearly.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Yes.
I was saying, until we have mechanisms and principles that institutions themselves have laid down, which is backed by law, we will always have the political hierarchy appointing and making decisions. And so what you said, there's some sort of like the criticism as the chief become, the chief. But I see that if we are able to implement change the law, in fact, the institutions of the IGP, etc., to have its own succession plan, then it helps us. We wouldn't have the political head making appointments, and then we won't have the fact about the citizen or belong to which faction or and then against this faction or whatever.
Doc, thank you so much for your time this morning and for speaking with us. Always grateful for your expert perspective. And that was Dr. Victor Doke, security lecturer and also analyst. But I still have Mr. Gabson Kofi Raphael in the studios, and we're still talking about the contract extension which has been granted for IGP Tete Yohunu. Gabson, there was some interesting thoughts put forth by Doc, especially talks about continuity around this festive period, and I thought that was an interesting angle because that kind of upheaval, change around this time might not provide for smooth security operations around this time, festive period. We know that things always get very energetic around this time with all manner of things happening. What do you make of that and any other assertions that he also made in that call?
I think that when people go into council to take a decision, and then the decision that they've taken, they look at circumstances and also look at the pace of work of the officer on whose behalf the state wants to take a decision, whether it should be retained or this thing. And I think that if you read the communique from the presidency, it clearly speaks to these issues, even though it didn't come straightforward to mention specifics. It says that since he took over, they've seen that he has been able to improve upon the general security situation in the country. And for the sake of continuity, there are some ongoing reforms that he spoke about. And then you need him to continue in terms of succession planning so that he can be able to actually anchor that thing to make sure that at least he navigates the country into safer grounds before he hands over to this. And so whatever my brother and friend is also speaking to are virtually attesting to some of these clear-cut benchmarks that they use to be able to do assess. They don't just give somebody assessment just as a political favor. They give it to you based on meritocracy. And I just think that the IGP has proven beyond reasonable doubt in the eyes of most discerning Ghanaians that, look, he deserves a contract extension. And if you read the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, Article 119, Clause 4, also speaks about how contract extension can be granted. It says that contract extension, according to Article 1194, public officers who have attained the age of 60 years may be re-engaged for a limited period, not more than 2 years at a time, but not exceeding 5 full years. So the contract extension can be granted up to 5 years. So these are issues that most people, when they are speaking, they don't refer to that. So I just think that I'm saying that if there's any breach, and we are discussing the breach, I'm for it. But as far as there's no breach, and the president has that power to decide who to let that person to continue on behalf of us. If it goes well, we'll give the president the credit. If it doesn't go well, we'll flag him for that decision that he has taken. He has that discretionary power, but it should not be acted capriciously or arbitrarily. And since he took that decision in line with standard rules of procedure and engagement, I just think that we just have to allow this thing to slide and make progress. Yes.
Now, Emmanuel Kuting is the executive director for the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism, and he's put forth a press statement, and this is another view of the conversation. Now, it's titled, "On the President's Approval of a 2-year contract extension for Inspector General of Police." Now, the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism has noted with concern President John Dramani Mahama's decision to approve a 2-year re-engagement for the Inspector General of Police, COP Christian Tete Yohunu, following the Police Council's recommendation. After careful consideration, the center finds itself unable to support this decision and wishes to place on record its objections. We recall that upon assuming office, this administration articulated an unambiguous policy position against granting contract extensions to heads of states institutions. This was not a campaign rhetoric, but a deliberate policy decision taken after government assumed power, ostensibly to promote institutional continuity, predictable succession, and merit-based progression within the public service. The decision to grant this extension barely months into the administration's tenure represents a significant departure from its stated policy. The center views this action as undermining the credibility of the government's own reform commitments and sending mixed signals about its approach to institutional governance. First, we are compelled to ask a fundamental question. What single initiative has IGP Yohunu introduced or implemented that warrants this extension? Since his appointment in March 2025, we have not observed any transformative policy, operational innovation, or institutional reform that distinguishes his tenure and justifies the extraordinary measure of extending his service beyond statutory retirement. Secondly, this decision bears the unfortunate appearance of political patronage rather than merit-based institutional management. When a government abandons its own policy to extend the tenure of an appointee it placed in office, reasonable observers will question whether the decision serves the public interest or narrower political considerations. Third, the center is deeply concerned about the implications for morale within the Ghana Police Service. The circumstances surrounding the removal of the former IGP, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare, are still fresh in our minds. The contrast between his treatment and the preferential extension now granted to his successor raises uncomfortable questions about consistency, fairness, and the criteria by which police leadership is evaluated. Fourth, and perhaps most fundamentally, this decision undermines the principle that Ghana should build strong institutions rather than depend on strong men. Every extension granted to an individual at the top denies opportunities to qualified officers in line for advancement. It signals that progression depends not on institutional processes, but on political favor. It does go on a fair bit, so I'll truncate it here so we can talk more in the studio. But we're joined by Ebo Bachman, Deputy Director of Communication, United Party. Gentlemen, I might have to move it this way for these two microphones. I'm having an issue with this microphone. So, Ebo, if you don't mind moving up one bit for me, and then we can have a conversation. We're talking IGP Yohunu tenure extended. What do you make of that? Good to see you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Ellie. I don't know why this has become an issue. You see, IMA institution has issued a statement, and in the statement, they made reference to something that it's a policy position of the government. I don't know why. I don't know whether that is policy position, but if that is the policy position, then the position was to suspend, was suspension of that given contract. Are you getting it? It was suspended, and it's something that is suspended is temporarily. It is not something that is terminated. Of course, it couldn't have been terminated because the Constitution wouldn't have allowed that. Because according to Article 109 of the Constitution, Clause 4, the President has that, if you like, that power to grant extension of contracts. And so if the Constitution permits it, and what the position of the government at the time the letter was written was to suspend it. Of course, if you assume office and there's a situation of there's a chaotic situation, what you do is that you need to introduce what I call peace be still situation, where you say, okay, let's suspend this for some time and let's ensure some stability in the system before. So I believe that probably they've done a lot of consultation, and they've come to the conclusion that his contract needs to be extended. If you don't want that thing to be there, let's remove it from the Constitution. Are you getting it? If you don't want it, if you don't want contract extension, then that amendment that was done in 1996 that allows for contract extension should be expunged from the Constitution. Once it is there, and no, I mean, I'm a constitutionalist. Once something happens, the first question I ask, is it against the Constitution? If it's not against the Constitution, then why the noise? If you don't want it, remove it from the Constitution. And if it's about the position of the government, the position of the government was to suspend it for some time. Anything it's suspended can be revisited. And so I really don't see, and you see, we are talking about the issue of national security here.
Right.
And the president is responsible for the national security of the country. But probably we've not been told everything because you don't have to. It's how to call need to know basis.
Right.
Yeah, so we've not been told everything. But I want to believe that if indeed Police Council has recommended that his contract be extended 2 years, I think there should be basis for it. It cannot be done in a vacuum or out of the blue. Certainly there will be a basis for that. So 2 years, of course, some people are saying that, okay, the man was appointed this year, right?
That's right.
And he's supposed to go this year.
This very year. He
Yeah,
appointed
yeah.
in March, he turned 60 in December.
Yes, and you see, I think that is the problem we have in our system. The politicians are also not helping. Look at what happened to the Chief Justice also.
In fact, Gabson made that same, I think you're both on the same wavelength this morning, because he also started with the Constitution. You also pointed that, and he says that what we do sometimes is that those who have that expertise are left on the bench for such a long time.
Yeah.
When they finally take the mantle, the time is limited.
Yeah, and you need such people when it comes to issue of security. It's not just about one person replacing the other. You need a certain level of expertise, a certain level of experience, and anyone who has known Mr. Yohunu will tell you that he's one of the few police people that you can rely on in terms of operations, in terms of expertise. And so if you have such a person and you think he still has something to offer the state, and the Constitution permits that his contract can be extended, why should you let him go?
Something you said has just piqued my interest. You talk about Yohunu as an individual, and those that know him know his strength and capabilities. In that press release I just read from Emmanuel Kutin's institution, he says that now we are building strong men instead of focusing on the institution, so that if our police service is so strong that, even if IGP Yohunu does 6 months, the next person we bring is from such a solid foundation because of the institution that it really doesn't matter. We're going to have quality. What do you make of that? Is that a good point?
What is an institution without men?
Strong men and strong institution. Can we have both?
That's what I'm asking the question. Is this an institution exists because of the men in the institution? How are you getting it? And so if you look at the man's contribution to the service over the years, and what he is capable of doing, of course, he's part of the institution. It is what they do that makes the institution strong. Are you getting the point? So I'm saying that, yes, and you always make reference to what Obama said.
That's right.
We need to build strong institutions and not strong men. And of course, you need strong men to man strong institutions. And so if you have someone who has got the experience, the expertise, and who can help, especially, I want to emphasize the issue of security. The president would have to protect his tenure and they protect the whole country.
That's right.
And so if he deems it necessary that this man, given his expertise and experience, he should be there for the next 2 years, I don't think, this is one position. It is one position. You see, we have a constitution that is so sick that the president is more than 60. But the president will ask somebody to go home when the president is his age is less than the age of the president. How are you getting this?
That's
so
right.
The Constitution doesn't put any limit on the president. But the president who's catering for the whole country, he can be there without time limit, right? But someone who's managing just a police service or judicial service or that person can be given a time that you have to go home. How are you getting that? There's something wrong with our Constitution.
Right.
And so I am saying that if the president, in his wisdom, thinks that the man's service is still needed by the states, and that the Constitution permits the president to give him the 2 years extension, and that the letter that was put forward by this administration was to suspend the extension. Once something is suspended, it can be revisited. It's only when it is terminated that it cannot be revisited. And so when we revisit that and we allow the man to, as it were, to come and continue his work for the next 2 years, and it's going to inure to the benefit of the state in terms of security, I don't see anything wrong with that, honestly speaking. I don't really see anything wrong with that.
Gaps, let me also pick your thoughts on this, because again, according to Emmanuel Coutin's release, he says that he can't even really point to anything extraordinary, anything spectacular in the last couple of months that IGP Christian Tete Yohunu has really put forth.
Is he really a security analyst? Sometimes let's stop blowing hot air. I gave you classical example.
Yes.
I told you that I live in Atebubu. I'm based in Bono East. I'm now in Accra. But almost every week I go back to my constituency. I go back to my municipality. I go back to the communities. I do a lot of PTO work across the country. Sometimes when you are traveling in the night, you are very, very careful about your security situation. In some places, they even have to let you wait in a long queue in the public transport, even before the police and the soldiers have to take you through an escort. We're in this country not too long ago when we were told that most of the banks were being attacked by armed robbery.
Indeed.
What has been the story since he took over? May I reflect a lot on so many things before I make comments? I might not like you, but if your issues are clear, I'll speak for it. You see, strong institutions, strong individuals. There are three things that build strong institutions. The human resource and the capacity of the person to show leadership is very key. The second one is the systems that you put in place and the time-tested values that that institution hold in high esteem. When you bring these three together, it builds a strong institution.
So it's a marriage, not
it's
just
a marriage of
one or the
convenience.
other.
You don't pick one and lose. You don't do pick and choose. They are bedfellows. It's like Bafana from Bafana Kosroba, yeah, former or better. He has no option. And this is somebody that nobody is questioning his track record as an exceptional public servant. Nobody has ever accused him that in his public conduct, he has misconducted himself in A, B, or C. My good friend and my brother made a very clear analogy. We speak about these things. When even the Constitution says that, look, the person still have, in terms of extension, he has a contract extension of a maximum period of 5 years. First two, second two, the last one. It's this at 194. For me, we have to differentiate between two laws that manages and runs a country. As you start as a human being, your spinal cord is what is keeping you. The flesh is on the spinal cord. So there are constitutional laws and there are administrative laws. The letter written by the executive secretary was an administrative law.
Yeah.
It's an operational policy. It's not a constitutional law. It cannot override what is stated in the Constitution. And you see, when we are discussing this thing, we should discuss it in the context of the Constitution. You might even see that, you might even go behind the scenes and say, there are people who were eyeing that position and they were juggling for space to take over from that man. And because they didn't get it, there are people who have started piecing all around. But we are not here to talk about piecing. We are here to talk about who best fits the job and who does the president trust. And these are issues also about trust.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Docker said, we're entering the festive season. This is not the time to be doing any upheaval of the service.
I'm just saying that it's about trust. It's about loyalty. It's about confidence. It's about who best fits their job. There were so many people who were looking for this space to sit when John was leaving. But in the wisdom of the management, they felt we were the best person to sit here. And so far, I think that you are proving beyond reasonable doubt that what men can do better.
Amen.
So for me, what we are discussing, since it does not violate any law, and you cannot say administrative policies supersede constitutional laws. Constitutional laws are superior to administrative laws. So there are two laws that runs any institution: the constitutional aspect of it and the administrative aspect of it. So the administrative laws comes to back. And you see, the state laws that it's on suspension. It's on hold.
Yeah.
That's the meaning. Just check the meaning of suspension. It means that this thing for now is on hold. They are not saying that we are doing away with it because they don't have those powers. So those who are speaking to these issues, they talk to the parliamentarians and convince them and do an advocacy and may be able to convince majority of Ghanaians that, look, if somebody gets the age of 60, he has nothing. And sometimes, you see, he said it very nicely. We are a country full of hypocrites. We don't care if a president is even 70 years and is going to contest. We ask whether he has brains to handle the country, whether he has the strength to handle the country. We don't check about his age limit. We look at whether he has the largesse. He's able to finance his campaign. He's able to mobilize funds to do that. These are the things we look at. Capacity. Yeah. We speak about capacity. So why is it that when it comes to a presidential, somebody going for MP, somebody going for DC appointment, somebody going for assemblyman or anything that is contested, which is an electoral office, an elected office, we don't use the age limit as a barrier. So for me, I think that public service is in the public interest. Yes, there's a retirement age, which is 60, but the president has the privilege to decide whether to give you a contract extension or not. And sometimes you don't just ask for it. If you deserve it, they give it to you. If you don't deserve it, they tell them, oh, we're testing that you've served the country wherever you have gotten to this. And these same people, when they even leave the country, we use them, we send them, they go outside or they run other errands for us in the country. And they still contribute. When there's a discussion on a public discourse, even in their retirement, we call them to come and share experience. Then that experience is there. We don't need it.
Certainly. Gamson, thank you for your thoughts. Well, I'll let you have the final wrap on this so we can move on to our next conversation.
I know Emma is a good friend.
Yes.
But I disagree with him when he said he has never seen that since the man came to office, he's come up with any transformative policy or something like that. Of course, if you enter into an institution and there are problems there, you solve the problems before you come out with your own, your own vision. Of course, we all know that police service at a point in time, there were a lot of chaotic situations in the service. And so if you go and there's nothing to change, do you have to change because there's a new person in town? Are you getting it? If the structures are good, but those managing the structures were not doing properly, the new person must just make sure that the structures work properly. It doesn't mean you should introduce something new to know that there's a new guy in town. So I disagree with Ima on that score, that because there should be basis, and if according to Ima, the basis should be that he's come up with something new, some transformative policy, and it's unnecessary because the police has structures and systems. It's human being that manages the structures and systems. So if at a point in time those structures and systems were not being managed properly, the new person that has come would have to focus on making sure that the structures and the system are properly managed. In fact, one
might even argue that is transformative enough. If you come and meet a broken system and you're able to now make sure it's revived and it's energetic, you are doing the right
It's not just about you introducing something new. That doesn't make you a good leader. Of course, if you come quickly and introduce something new, because let me tell you, the police service has a lot of problems. I live just opposite police station. I was born just opposite police station. All my life, I lived opposite police station.
Are you still opposite a police station?
No.
I was going to say then be measured because they are listening to you.
So for example, Dampari,
they can't do focal.
When Dampari became district commander, Kipus, I was his friend. I mean, that time I was a presiding member of the assembly.
Okay.
And so we were friends. Dampari, I remember sad story. One of his boys, Achana, used his car. He had an accident with Dampari's car and then died. And so we were. But I mean, let's say it as it is. I don't see anything wrong with what if the president gives him the green light, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't think it's something that should be belabored in the media.
Gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts. We'll pause now for a very quick break. When we come back, we'll get into our second topic for the morning. This is still 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.